Lads, we are back. It's game day.
But there's
It
one
is
sad
game
thing.
day.
Montreal
What?
toast.
What's the sad thing?
Yeah, what's going on?
There's no one around anymore to tell us to quit clowning around.
Oh, we'll get to Brian Burke. I love how Ron Hextall gets hired as the GM in Pittsburgh, but everyone cares about the president with Brian Burke. Like, I've seen next to nothing when it comes to the talk about Hextall, which I feel really bad for. But
Which
I guess
is
that's
weird.
what happens when you go to Sportsnet and you're like in the face of the Canadian media.
It's weird that no one's talking about Hextall, considering, Philadelphia and now Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him, though.
Well, we'll get to that a little later. Let me do the whole cheeky intro.
Yeah.
A little cheeky intro. Nuggets of news.
Yeah.
It is game day. It's Wednesday. Scotiabank rivalry night or something like that. They coined this as.
Close
The
enough.
Habs host the Leafs, guys, and I cannot tell you the sadness that is in my veins that the Canadians are hosting the Leafs, like, the block next to me, and I can't go watch it. It is a terrible feeling. I'll tell you that. We'll preview that game later on in the show. We've got lots to talk about. Our retirement. Laine got benched already. Same with Dean Kukin, but no one talked about that. We have F1 news I want to get to. Yeah, you thought we forgot? No. Lewis Hamilton. Sir Lewis Hamilton. He's a knight. Though I guess, to open the show, news of the week, guys. The Flyers, their legendary goalie and former GM at the same time, the guy who built the Flyers as we know them today, really.
Yeah.
Ron Hextall has been hired as the new general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And almost as in bigger news, really, and going with him, but instead as the president of hockey operations, Sportsnet's not former Hartford Whaler GM, Leafs, Canucks, the guy who basically, who built the Ducks team and won the cup.
Who did he draft?
Sportsnet's own, the Sedin, Swedish twins, Morgan Riley, Nazem Kadri. Brian Burke is going.
Bobby Ryan.
He was this close to getting Crosby. I hope he called Sid and was like, I finally got you.
Yeah.
Though I guess
Took
you're
a while.
first. We'll get Berkey out the way. I don't mean to say it so rudely, but it's like everyone is talking about the Burke side of this when really maybe we should be talking about the great general manager. But I want to get your guys' feeling. The first thing we saw Brian Burke after he was hired by Pittsburgh, he does this media availability, and the tie is undone.
What a surprise.
I love it so much. What did you guys
Burke is
make
back.
of? I didn't think he'd go back to hockey. I don't know why. I thought he would just live out his days on the camera. I shouldn't be surprised, but I am, and I'm going to send it to the guy who's met Brian Burke on this podcast and the Ducks fan. Daniel, your thoughts on Brian Burke?
Honestly, I think from, that meeting him, and, he's a really nice guy, by the way.
Yes.
I'm happy for him. I remember they were also former players or former managers that have spoken about it, that, when they switch into like a network job, that desire, to want to get back into the thick of things is always there, no matter how long you are from it. And I felt it with Brian Burke. Like, he had so much knowledge he still wanted to give. A lot of what he did before, I really think, like, his position in Calgary was a bit of a premature thing. I think he expected to stay there longer, but the Flames are at a better position because of him. I don't know what this is going to kind of mean to the team in a way that what Pittsburgh is at this point, because one thing I kind of feel is, I know he's going to be the president of things, but we know how Brian Burke is. He's not a guy that likes to take, the slow approach to things. He's not a guy that is going to look at this team and say, hey, maybe we should fill a bit of the foundation. He's a guy that when Mario Lemieux said we're still in a win now situation, Brian Burke's like, I absolutely agree with you. And I think it's going to be an interesting thing, because with Jim Rutherford, we thought about these moves, and I know he wasn't the he was the GM of it, but at the same time, it's kind of a crazy thing that I think about, that what Brian Burke's going to bring to it because, and I know we'll get to it, but like Ron Hextall was a guy that, he came into the Flyers to kind of fix Paul Holmgren's mess there, and he treaded a line that I think was what unfortunately like got him fired because he wanted to keep things as they were, but also he still tried to build like at the same time.
It's interesting you mentioned that. Today there was an emergency 31 Thoughts podcast where Jeff Merrick and Ollie Friedman had Brian Burke. It seems to be the feeling is that the Penguins will sort of ride out this year doing what they can, but then this summer they are really going to sort of build their blueprint from there. And then I'll shift it here, right? Alex, there is a reputation around with Ron Hextall. He was of course, the assistant GM in the LA Kings for a long time, really helped build that team into the 2-time Stanley Cup champions in the 2010s. Then he goes to Philly, and patience was just the word you used to describe him. Got canned there because he wouldn't call up Carter Hart, and now look at the Flyers. They're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference.
No.
You think it's fair that we've just sort of crowned him this builder? This sort of, almost kind of what people are joking what Steve Yzerman is now?
I think it's fair. Like, you look at Philadelphia, it has Ron Hextall written all over it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's unfortunate the way things turned out there, considering he didn't want to bring him up and, the fact that he's a goalie himself. Mm-hmm. And maybe that was the wrong move from his standpoint, right? If that's what ultimately got him fired. And, you look at Carter Hart now, we're obviously having a different discussion. But I think what he did with that team to start with, it's his fingerprints all over this thing. Yeah, you have the guys who were there before, but the prospects and the younger guys who are now in this lineup is literally Ron Hextall. And I think to tie it back to Burke, I think what you might have here is kind of the best of both worlds, because Burke is going to be involved, right? And I think from the standpoint that it's a win now mentality in Pittsburgh, I think that might be Brian Burke's expertise. Like, yes, he only won 1 cup, but those years in Anaheim, and even so, like, not here in Toronto so much, but I think he was trying to help build towards that in Toronto as well. Mm-hmm. Help with the win now mentality. Whereas Ron Hextall, where I think his expertise is going to come, is replenishing the prospect pool, because like we've had this discussion so many times where it's like Pierre-Olivier Joseph and Samuel Poulin, and Joseph's playing in the NHL right now. Mm-hmm. Like, what else? They don't have a whole lot else in terms of prospects who aren't in the NHL yet.
Mm-hmm. The funniest thing about how this all sort of came together, apparently the Flyers were set on, I guess, not the Flyers, sorry. The Penguins were set on Hextall after his first interview. He had a second one, and this is all from Elliot Friedman, by the way. And apparently through this whole process, they were using Brian Burke as a sort of soundboard, trying to get information. At some point, the ownership group in Pittsburgh, which of course includes Mario Lemieux, said, let's just get Brian Burke on. What's really funny about this is I listened to, of course, all three of us listened to 31 Thoughts before. Daniel, you've been lucky enough to actually contribute to that podcast. There's a credit on one of those episodes with you. We always mention that. And, I've always heard, LA be like, oh, I got this message from this person. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to DM him and just be like, did you have any idea? Because it doesn't seem like you did. And he actually got back to me. And he's like, I didn't know Burke was going there. So I just want to say that I had a one-on-one conversation with Elliot Friedman. It was 2 tweets, but anyway, a personal conversation with Elliot Friedman about hockey. He liked my shoes, and he gave me the scoop on what he knew.
Well, that's what friends of the show, do for you guys.
Yeah. He was also talking about that apparently around like 150 or something, when the news came out, Burke had apparently told me, I'm going to Pittsburgh. And Elliot didn't believe him, but he's like, listen, he eventually did. He's like, oh, crap, this is happening. Yeah. And made him sort of hold on before he let the news out, which I thought was really, really, really funny. Also, a little detail here is apparently Ron Hextall was asked about if it's okay to bring Brian Burke in. and he was fine with it. And yeah, it's like Burke, and you can see it with some of the moves again that he made in Toronto. You guys are kind of talking about here. He's not afraid to pull the trigger to make the moves better, but again, that virtuous nature of Hextall to maybe sort of, we're going to take a step back here for our prospects. You guys have said it as well here. It really seems like a good match. And I much like Burke as a president more than I do the way, and my mic cut out. Oh,
that's
okay.
fine.
Whoops. Okay.
It's okay. Just keep going. Just keep
you know what I mean, though. Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a weird combination but it works, right?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it could be weird as hell, but if it works, it works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people give Brian Burke a lot of crap because of some of his takes on Sportsnet when it comes to the physicality of the game. And a lot of the time I don't agree necessarily with his thought process, but I still think this combination works because I think whether he's 100% right, I don't necessarily think so, but I think to a certain extent he's right because like I'll use Toronto as an example. The last 3 years, I think Dubas's mentality has been skill. And I think when they played Columbus, they learned that that's not going to go. That's not going to work. So look at the moves they made this summer. And I think that's the mentality that Burke has somewhat. So I guess it's an interesting match, but I think it will work out for them.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, it's just two things. So the first thing is I know there's a difference between the player and the manager, but I just find it kind of funny that we're talking about how calm and patient Ron Hextall is.
Yeah,
compared to how he was as a goalie.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to watch him play because I wasn't born yet. Yeah. But
really,
like yes,
but you got to watch the Richards in their heyday.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. That was with the DeLorean. You know, that was not natural.
You were there. It's just because you were mocking up to what you told me, 77 miles per hour.
88 miles per hour.
88 miles per hour. Sorry, go ahead.
Just
funny
fast.
tidbit with that. Actually, because of that movie, I wanted to only learn how to drive manual. But anyways,
really,
yeah, because of that movie. But the one thing I find with that is, yeah, just looking back at his old games, like fighting everybody, going after players when he let in a bad goal, and then suddenly we shift to like he's a very patient guy. That I honestly, what he got the Flyers out of, like I thought they were going into like a full-fledged rebuild of some sort. Like you're gonna see like Couturier or Giroux or Voracek like sold off because Paul Holmgren's the president there now, but he really put that team in a bind with the contracts he gave away. I forgot, like looking at this before this episode, like Mark Streit or Andrew McDonald were given huge contracts to try to fix that defense. And the way Paul Holmgren kind of like put that there, and he's like, all right, I'm going to be the president now. I'm not the GM anymore. And then, yeah, Ron Hextall was managed to kind of maneuver around there. And I think maybe that's what Pittsburgh needs right now is a bit of that balance, a bit more of, we could still keep making the moves to try to get what we can with the core, but let's start thinking about, not maybe this season, but look ahead that Crosby and Malkin are not going to be there forever.
I know a move you can make. Maybe bring in Sam Bennett. I stole this from Alex. I know I did.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. I put it in there and I put in the document. It'd be hilarious if Sam Bennett did go to Pittsburgh though. Like think about how often Burke talks about the guys in Calgary. Wouldn't it just be
the two grumpiest people in NHL?
Right. But I just, before we move on, I think Daniel brings up a very good point about patience. And I think there's going to be a lot of impatient fans in Pittsburgh, considering how successful they've been throughout the 2010s. And listen, like, honestly, how many more years will this team be a contender?
Can't be more than 3, can it? Crosby's what, 30, 33, 34 now?
Like, yeah, probably around there. Like Malkin and Crosby and even Letang, like it feels like a lot is riding on them. So as soon as things go down for those three players, it feels like that's where we're really coming to an end. And it's interesting to see how long they gave Hextall, I think 4 years plus the optional year for number 5. Obviously year 1 would be the rest of this season. So I feel like maybe they're interested in going long-term with Ron Hextall, because I don't think the ownership group in Pittsburgh, I think they realize that, hey, like we're coming to the end of our contending period. And we need, like, it could either be really messy or it could be done well and done properly, the rebuild or retool, whatever it is. Because, like, sure, you can build around Jake Gensel, but injuries, and he's not Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Or even Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah. One thing, though, I know you can't really rebuild until you get rid of Sid. But if there are a handful of players in this league that I would like to see retire with their current teams, Sidney Crosby's up there. I joke about it, but if I had a choice between seeing Sidney Crosby play in the Montreal Canadiens jersey or like him finishing with Pittsburgh, I'd say finish with Pittsburgh just for the sort of the sentimental value of it. It's just he's a Penguin. He's done so much for that franchise. It's incredible. One of the all-time greats. Anything else you guys want to add to this situation before we move on?
Just 2 things. Just a funny thing you talked about with Crosby, because I'm just remembering the jokes that were like Martin Brodeur will always be remembered as a St. Louis Blue.
Yeah,
I remember that was kind of circulating for a bit. The second thing is, like, I completely agree that it's kind of time to think about these things, because Alex brought up a good point, like Jake Gensel, that Pittsburgh, for the amount of prospects and picks they've given away, they've been so lucky with Gensel, Rust, John Marino, all developing into what they are today. But when you look at it, like, they took quite a bit of time to develop. These were all NCAA guys. These were, what Steve Dangle calls, they were the magic beans kind of picks that you get later on, that, it's never a guarantee with these things. Like, they gotta have to start thinking about asset management in, like, a more meaningful way.
Anything else? Okay. Sounds good. Actually, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Forget about the new GM. Get a new medical staff, because it feels like everyone is injured all the time there. Right. The Columbus Blue Jackets are in the news still.
Again?
They are this year's Ottawa Senators. Maybe not as bad on the score sheet, but when it comes to news, they are a disaster. And Aaron Portzline, everyone follow him. He's the best reporter this series.
Let's not compare them to Ottawa. Okay, Ottawa had some downright embarrassing things the last few years, and especially with Eugene. Let's get okay.
Well, okay. So
this might be an insult to Columbus.
I first of all think that this Laine stuff has been blown out of proportion. But before we get into the Laine and Dean Kukin, because Kukin got it too, guys. Let's not forget about Dean Kukin. Exactly.
Another top 6 guy.
I always get Dean Kukin and Dominic Cahoon mixed up. Not going to lie.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I honestly, for the longest time. First off, the Columbus actually won their last game against the Hurricanes. You love to see it. Before that, they lost one against them. I'm going to read you an article from scoutingtherefs.com.
The whole article?
No, just a bit of it. The Columbus Blue Jackets challenged Vincent Trocheck's goal, believing he was offside. They were right. The NHL just didn't realize it in time. Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella challenged the play, issuing his first coach's challenge of the season. Columbus went 3 for 4 on challenges last season. I love how people are tracking that, by the way. After a brief review, Trocheck's goal, by the way, so let me say it again. After a brief review. Trocheck's goal was allowed to stand, giving the Hurricanes a 4-3 lead. The Blue Jackets were assessed a minor penalty for delay of game on the unsuccessful challenge. This is important because, by the way, this game finished in a 1-goal contest. And the Blue Jackets lost that game by 1. The puck was dropped moments later, and the teams played out the uneventful minute 15 to close out the second period. After the intermission, Tortorella received an explanation from the officials. Review confirmed that the play was offside. The goal would stand, but the remaining 45 seconds of the penalty would be taken off the board. Quote, so genius to take 40 seconds off the clock, said Patrik Laine. I've never seen that one before, but I guess there's always a first time. And this is from the NHL's official explanation. Columbus requested a coach's challenge for offside prior to a goal at 18:45 of the second period. During the review, a miscommunication occurred between the video replay booth in Columbus, the linesman in the situation room, and play resumed before all replays could be reviewed to confirm the offside. The challenge by Columbus should have resulted in the Carolina goal being disallowed. Subsequently, Columbus was assessed a delay of game penalty. After confirmation in the intermission that the play was offside, the remaining 45 seconds of the delay of game penalty issued was rescinded to begin the third period. And for those of you who don't know, Rule 37.2 addresses this whole problem, and the problem is, why do you not take the goal away? Any potential goal requiring video review must be reviewed prior to and or during the next stoppage of play. No goal may be awarded or disallowed as a review of video review once the puck has been dropped and the play has resumed. And Colin Campbell came out and talked about basically there was no precedent for this. Now,
okay, but you have a rule. That's so stupid. By the rules, you're right.
The league totally dropped the ball on this, right? Totally did.
Well, that explanation doesn't mean anything. Like but by the rules, you're right. By the rules, technically, the goal shouldn't have been called back. So there's no precedent for this. Well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna change the rule? Like, I don't know. You're right. The goal, that's so miscommunication. You're telling me you couldn't fit, like, as soon as he said no goal, where was the miscommunication? Because as soon as he got the referee said the goal stands and there's a 2-minute minor, if I'm the guy seeing in the booth and there's a miscommunication, I'm like, wait a second. Like,
and the whole communication came as a result that, so the refs apparently overheard a guy saying that's a good goal in the situation room. And so they had taken their headset off. And with COVID regulations, the timekeeper has to sanitize the headphones. So no one heard the situation room going, it's not good. Stop it, you idiots.
That's so irresponsible. Like, that's kind of, I know that.
This is weird. Sorry, guys.
So I just thought of one example. For example, remember when we had Mike on the show for the draft and he had his colleague with him?
Yeah.
It's like thinking like we're going to listen to the colleague say something like, oh yeah, that's a good goal. Like, oh yeah, okay, take it off now, guys.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know about other teams, but I remember I once went on a tour in the Bell Center. And there's, of course, the timekeeper's area. There is the situation room, which is, I believe it is in Toronto, right?
The Tour de Bell.
Yeah, the Tour de Bell. But in Montreal, there's actually a middle guy that's in one of like the rooms around the gondola and that. So the question, like, first of all, the refs kind of screwed up because I guess there was no sort of confirmation. The situation room screwed up. But I don't know if Columbus don't have that middleman or if with regulations, that's one less body. Now, I want to ask you guys two different questions here. Okay. If you had the say-so, yes or no, would you have taken the goal back? Daniel, starting with you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough thing because like it's like in that moment, yes, but then like afterwards, it's just another mess completely. Because this happens a lot in the NBA, where referees apologize that they had the missed calls, but at the same time, it's like we're not changing the score of the game at this point. So it's just something that I kind of think about that you have to really work on, like maybe implement something else when these things happen that. You know, like a lot of these calls happen, you know, like I don't know how this works, to be honest, but it's just like, is there like one solid voice that confirms, yes, that's a good goal or that's not a good goal. Like in the room, like who do you hear it from? Like four other people?
Okay, hold on. Okay, because I
Mhm.
have another question, and we can keep going here.
'Cause
Alex, would you have, if the authority, would you have taken the goal back?
based on the rules, no,
No. Okay,
because
you have. Let's say no. You have complete authority here.
oh, then yeah, I would take the goal back because that's just blatant miscommunication. And
Now another question, and I'll start with Alex, then Daniel. Should the goal have been, kind of like your gut feeling here? Should the goal have been called back? Like we want to use a common sense rule or something. That's a term I love to use. Common sense rule.
what, like, based on the play? Because I don't remember the play off the top of my head. Like, was it? Are you asking me if it was actually offside?
No. Well, apparently they ruled it was offside. Like, let's say you
Okay.
have just on the principle level of it, should it have been? Let's just
Should it have
take
been
our
called
own
back?
personal bias, but like, just look at the situation, the facts we have in front of us. Should the league have said, you know what, guys,
Well,
we've completely screwed this?
I think I mean, here's the thing: because it ended in a 1-goal game, I think it would have been really weird to say, okay, we're taking a goal back, because the thing is, now you have this game that's I think, what was the score, 5-4 or 6-5?
I think it was 6-5.
So now you have a game that's 5-5. Now what? That's the thing. So afterwards, there's nothing you can do about it. After the game, there's nothing, because you're left in an awful situation where you're going to end up with a draw, which the NHL hasn't seen in how many decades. But
Overtime, but
yeah, but an actual draw, like a proper 5-5 draw.
okay. Oh yeah, you score
Right?
Yeah.
Like, but you can deal with it in the second period, like in the second intermission, which they clearly figured out.
Mm-hmm.
So based on the rules, the thing is, because based on the rules, no, the goal technically should have stayed, because the puck was dropped and the play had resumed.
Daniel.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go back to what I said before, that in the moment of this, that you have to be smarter about this, but because like when that game's done, the game is done, and like we've seen in other sports too, there's been a lot of miscues, there's been a lot of like missed calls where umpires or refs come up and say, like, we have to apologize that we missed this call, or this wasn't something that was consistent with what we were calling throughout the game. And it happens, but you have to kind of deal with it within the game. Like I'm just gonna stress that, because that's just that's the crux of it, that once the siren goes, then you're not gonna be able to fix that.
Would you like to know my point of view on this?
Yes.
I think absolutely you should have taken it back. Like that's not the ref's fault at the end of the, like, there's some blame, yeah, but the buck has to stop with the league on this. And you guys know me, I'm such a proponent of the common sense rule.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a goal. But then you start thinking, guys, it was only a minute 15. But then you start wondering, okay, what about we stretch it to minute 30? 2 minutes. And like, I am such a proponent of getting the call right. But then you start getting into that question of, then how far back can you set a review? Like, in that moment, I look at a minute 15 and I'm like, guys, we screwed up here. We have to make it right here. Because, again, this is not the first time the Blue Jackets in the past calendar season, not year, because I think they got screwed in December, was it last season? With the whole clock, like time not being back on the clock. Corpusalo got hurt in the shootout, and like a Werenski goal didn't count.
I think, and I just to comment, like, I think it's different than going back, making a decision on a review. Like, I think this is such an anomaly that the amount of times this is actually going to happen, because you're right. Like, how far back are we going to change to the review, right? There's a whole discussion. What if they entered the zone 45 seconds ago and it was offside and then they score a goal? Can you still review that? for that goal to be offside, even though it wasn't directly leading to the goal, right? That's a discussion. I think that's different in this case, though.
I hate that rule, by the way. I think the moment, like, it starts when you enter the zone, by the way, for me. If that stopped at offside, then it was offside. Like, I hate when people say, was that part of the goal? Well, yeah, because you have to enter the zone to do it. And at the same time, should we have offsides in the game? Probably not. But I would have in that moment, and I look at, like, in that situation, I would have said, no, guy, like, we have to try and get this back.
But you have to do it at the second intermission, though, right?
Then you do it. It was only a minute. Like, in that moment, you can play another minute 15 added on to the beginning of the third. You can do that. There is precedent for that. That has happened before.
Yeah, or don't rush it, right when you get the call. Like, the fans aren't waiting for you in the arena. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm. I got to watch my head because the lighting of my blinds is just, whoop.
Are you blinded by the light?
Whoop.
I already used that one.
Stop.
Anything else you guys want to add on this before we go to the next bit of Columbus drama?
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll end up with a good one for him.
Okay. Mika Koivu. Played his entire career up until this season with the Minnesota Wild. He's played over 1,000 games, 700 points, 200 goals, and holds most Minnesota records. Got to play 7 games with Columbus because they needed centerman. Was not happy with his level of play and has decided to retire. I don't know about you guys, and I tweeted this. I don't know how in the world this guy didn't get a Selke trophy, by the way. And I do have a soft spot for the Koivus in my heart as a Canadiens fan. Saku and now Miku, even though Saku's clearly the superior Koivu. I'll say that. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on Miku, and we can get to the Columbus part of this in a second, because I think people are, again, overblowing this too much on Torts, but
are they blaming it on Torts?
Yeah, people were saying that he drove him out of town. I'm like, stop it.
Listen, if he's been able to survive Minnesota, come on, like all three of us have had the discussion about Minnesota and how they're in nowhere land. I think, I don't think Torts was the issue.
Daniel, you're our resident Minnesota guy. I know, again, Columbus banner, but 7. You talk about Brodeur and his 6-7 games with St. Louis. He did the same thing here with Koivu.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna just look back on his legacy of things, and I was very fortunate to see him grow up because, as I've mentioned before, a young Daniel, very young Daniel, was a big Marian Gaborik fan. So I think that's when I really got into the Wild But what I kind of felt with that is when you saw that team kind of go through a lot of turnover, you saw Marian Gaborik take the big money and go to the Rangers when he was still one of the best superstars. You see someone like Mikko Koivu kind of run with it, say that he's going to stay, and he's going to, in a way, he really did stay to the end until Minnesota's like, we are not re-signing you, because he became their first permanent captain, because they used to have a rotation with him, Andrew Brunette, I believe, and Richard Park. And
Really?
Yeah. And, he was a guy that he stayed there since 2001. He's been a leader for them. I think the one thing that really signified things for me is that he never complained when the team was kind of tanking it, and he still stayed as the captain and the voice of the room, even when you got guys like Parise and Suter come in.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing for me. And another thing too was when we talk about the Wild being in nowhere land, he didn't waive his no trade clause because he wanted to stick with Minnesota. He wanted to see where they were going with things. Unfortunately it didn't work out, but at the same time, he just was in a way an embodiment of that Wild team, really since the beginning, because everyone's going to look at Gaborik and his career numbers, but you're not going to look at the underlying things, what we talk about with Koivu, the leadership, that two-way game, that commitment to the franchise. So in a way, I'm just really happy for him that he had this long career. It's unfortunate he didn't get to the cup, but that's what happens when you stay with the Wild. But I'm just wishing him the best.
Mm-hmm. Alex.
Yeah, I mean Daniel said a lot of it. He was a guy in Minnesota, and obviously Daniel talked about Gaborik, and and those guys. But those last few years, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for him. Like, obviously his career was kind of clearly ending in a way, but like, you're right. And Daniel makes a good point. Like, he didn't want to leave Minnesota. Like, I think that was clear. And I think we underestimate his value in that locker room there. And I think that is, at this point in his career, I think that's his best asset.
Mm-hmm. Probably would like to hang on to him and Hextall. Feels like there's a lot. Those could have been very valuable to some of that young core in Minnesota, though. There was such bad timing with this because there was the Columbus fiasco with the Hurricanes. There was this, even though there doesn't need to be any sort of connection to Torts here. Right. We don't pay that much attention to Columbus on a normal season. Like, no one should act like they do unless your name is Aaron Portsline.
Or you live in Columbus.
Even so. Listen. So Patrik Laine was benched for a majority of the second and in the third period. And I'm just going to read you a little snippet from 31 Thoughts that came out today. Tortorella said the Laine benching wasn't because of a missed assignment on Brock McGinn's 2-2 goal Monday night. Multiple sources indicated it happened when Laine blew off one of the coaches who tried to talk to him about it. Tortorella has his code, and that would violate it, Friedman. Now, since then, like, Cam Atkinson has come out and said, we've all had it. Josh Anderson, who was a Columbus Blue Jacket up until this season, said it happened to him plenty. He went, oh, yeah, it's happened.
Even Keefe talked about it.
Really?
Because Torts, I think he was head coach when Keefe was there for a year or so.
Listen, I get, and Dean Kukin happened to him as well. I don't know what happened with Dean Kukin.
Who?
No one's talked. Dean Kukin, exactly. No, it feels like people are just giving Torts way too much crap for this. Like, if like, you listen to the coach, like, I think we've very much taken Laine side a lot of the Winnipeg stuff. I think we've harped on Blake Wheeler and that, but I mean, like, at some point, there was talk about, I think Atkinson said it. I'm going to paraphrase this, that, you know what, if you just look like you're trying, it's not, you can't fake it with Torts. And like, that staff and that room is so tight and have been through so much together. You hope Laine learns from this because, like, man, it's like you don't blow off your boss when they try and tell you how to improve at your job.
Laine had a press conference this morning. I have a couple quotes from
Did
that.
he? Okay.
Obviously, guess who the quotes are from? Aaron Portsline.
Attaboy.
Patrik Laine says he deserved to be benched. Further, he doesn't think it will have any impact on his future with the Blue Jackets. The quote, we've moved on. We've talked about it. It's going to stay in the room. All good now. Sometimes you say things you don't want to say. We've talked about it and moved on.
That's good.
Do you know why I think it got blown out of proportion?
Because everything going on. Dubois hadn't played yet.
Right. Like,
yeah.
I think for me, I'm like, okay, like, he got benched and he probably, like, he might've deserved it. I don't know at the time, I didn't know what the play was, but it was more for me. It was funny that he got benched before Dubois even touched the ice as a Winnipeg Jet.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, we know how Torts is, and a big thing too was Josh Anderson when he was interviewed about it. He just laughed. He's like, "Yeah, it's happened to me a couple times. Like, it's just how it is with it." I think Laine is just coming from a point of, I guess, frustration. He didn't play for a while, and then he goes to Columbus and still trying to figure out things. But I don't know, when I heard about, like, him yelling to a coach, and, like, that's like a very young person thing to happen, because I remember that used to happen to Evgeny Malkin before with
yes, very public.
With an Olchek, with Dan Biosma, and then I remember there was one cut to it where, like, I think he kind of understood it by the time it was the 2016 playoffs, that, like, you'll see Mike Sullivan yell at him when, like, Malkin is having a fit, and he just kind of, like, took it, like, not like he took it, but, like, he just kind of understood, like, okay, like, these outbursts or like these penalties he's been taking, like it's so detrimental to the team that you need to kind of like buy into the system in a way. And I think like for me, it was just a young mistake for Patrik Laine.
Even last year, we'll use Torts as an example. Last season in the playoffs, he was ripping, like it looked like he was absolutely giving it to Pierre-Luc Dubois on the bench, and Dubois, no reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens.
And at all levels. Remember it happened to Nathan McKinnon and Jared Bednar a couple of years ago, and when McKinnon fell off the bench,
yes,
Landeskog was like, buddy, calm down.
Yeah.
It happens to good and bad teams, all right? It happens, man. It happens.
Yeah. I don't like this. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just the torch thing. It's like a lightning rod in a way. Like it'll happen across the league, and then like it'll happen across the league. But I think with like Tortorella, it's a story there, right? It's something where like, oh, here we go again with this. But like, I like the Steve Dangle thing where it's like, did they really just trade Pierre-Luc Dubois for 40 games of Patrik Laine and Jack Roslovic?
Roslovic had a nasty goal to beat Carolina the other day too. Oh boy, that was nice.
Maybe Jack Roslovic is a top 6 center.
Maybe
we'll see.
Maybe Laine was the throw-in in the trade.
Well, like, listen, I think a lot of people, you're right, Adam, blew it out of proportion and made it seem like, you know what, he got benched and, now he's never going to sign in Columbus and he's going to leave at the end of the year. Like, listen, like, let's take a step back here. And I think what you said about the coaches, Torts' like rules, conduct rules, whatever he called them. I think you have to, that this is like every coach has this. I don't like young to old. A coach has these rules that you're going to follow. And if you don't follow these rules, like take a hike, you're sitting on the bench. And I don't think this is the most unreasonable rule ever. Right? Like it's very reasonable.
This is a rougher story to talk about. We talked about the first little bits of Bell firings last week, the Brent Wallace stuff. Since then, it's just gotten worse and worse, including Dan O'Toole from TSN, part of Jay and Dan. You might have heard of it. And now they have shut down multiple radio stations in Vancouver, Winnipeg. Hamilton is being rebranded to like Bloomberg, whatever. Vancouver and Winnipeg are now being turned into comedy channels. Yeah. I don't know if someone's knocking, but the door is open.
I thought that was like our cue.
Yeah.
I thought it was a dramatic pause.
I'm worried now. I should check that. But okay, I'm getting really paranoid because that may be something very important.
Okay, go.
So
we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'll give my opinion. It sucks, but I'll be right back.
I think this situation is really awful, and I think we've had this discussion on and off the podcast before a couple times. Like media's not getting any bigger. Right? Like, I think the pandemic, even before the pandemic, like we've had discussions with people and they've even told us that in school too. Like the media landscape is not getting any like the traditional media landscape where you go work for CBC, you go work for Sportsnet, you go work for TSN, you go work for CP24. Like that traditional media is not getting any bigger. If anything, it's getting smaller, and the pandemic obviously didn't help with that. And I think this just makes it worse. And obviously this one was specific to sports, which I think hits hard for all three of us. And here's what hit me the wrong way. A couple things hit me the wrong way. I think number one is they took money from the government that was supposed to be used as a stopgap to not fire your employees. They then went on to increase dividends to share owners and a couple other things. Then they run Bell Let's Talk, 2 days later,
Okay.
they fire 200 people.
One thing, because I know people are saying they don't support that. It's crappy, but I still love the idea of Bell Let's Talk, and that still helps a lot.
Don't get me wrong.
Maybe,
don't get me wrong.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say quickly, like people saying cancel Bell Let's Talk, take a step back, please.
But I just it left a sour taste in my mouth, considering it's been less than like a week. I'm not saying get rid of it. I think the initiative is great, but I think this came out of nowhere, and I think the way that they did it that's what left a sour taste in my mouth. That it was like half an hour notice, and the audacity to play like Green Day. I don't even remember the song at the end of the Good Riddance at the end of the broadcast. Really, like you gave them half an hour.
Yeah. What was? Sorry, before I throw it over here, Daniel. So yeah, employees had a 30-minute notice before they had to clear out their desks. I was checking because I think Bob McKenzie gave a shout out to a bunch of their workers. And I was checking their Twitter feeds because I'm wondering, like, is there any indication here? And some of them about 13 minutes before the news came out said, all right, previewing this Flames game tonight, or Jets at Flames, we'll recap it tomorrow morning. And it's like, you got it. And like videos of employees going to work and they're tuning into the station and it's not that. Daniel, this is just... Jeff Merrick earlier today on 31 Thoughts it felt very chilling from normally a very, very knowing, very positive person. He said, I judge people very much based on the way they say goodbye. How do you judge Bell now, the way that they have said goodbye to 3 stations along with multiple other members of staff over the last few weeks?
I don't know. I think, like, for me, I'm going to take the Jeff Merrick approach where, he has kind of expressed a lot of that disappointment. And for me, it's been a lot like what Alex said, like it hits us a lot because of the fact that it was sports, that it's just a lot to take in. I find that I still believe that, what you're going to do with this industry, it's just like, you just have to keep on going because like they've spoken before, like, there's always an excuse to want to quit with this. There's always an excuse to like say like get out of this industry kind of thing. But I don't know, like I'm the underlying thing is I'm hopeful for this, but like I think for me it's just the whole idea of processing everything, because like that was a lot in quite a bit. And like, with Bell, I'm not sure how this was kind of decided on like within these last 2 weeks, to be honest, because like if I take one perspective from this, it's just a weird thing because like I grew up with Brent Wallace, I grew up with Dan O'Toole, yes. And in a way too, like not saying like that's the standard of things, but it's a kind of thing where it's like, look what you can do if you work your way up. And then these guys that you feel in a way are like part of your everyday, like they're part of that like social media consumption are like suddenly not there, at least in the traditional sense, like of where they are with TSN. So that's just definitely something like I've been thinking about, because to be honest, I can't give a direct answer with this because like it's just on top of like the whole pandemic and everything, it's just another thing to kind of process. And I think more is going to come out later on, because like I know Jeff Merrick has kind of also spoken that too, that like there will be more details coming in, and like he'll probably speak more on this as well.
Just it's really disappointing. And
sorry. Go.
I want to know why. Like, okay, Hamilton, maybe I could understand. I don't know how popular the radio station is. That radio station is in Hamilton. But anytime I hear something sports related come out of Winnipeg, it's generally always TSN. Like, and the same with Vancouver. Like, I know, like, my understanding is TSN has been doing quite well in Vancouver compared to Sportsnet the last few years.
Yeah, it was higher rating than Sportsnet's station there.
Like, that's what I want to know. Why? Like, why?
The real gut punch. Sorry if you guys mentioned this when I was gone. that Bell's profits were up in the first quarter of the year, apparently. It's like, are you serious?
No.
It's the way they handled it. I'll say it was disgusting, really, the way I look at it. And yeah, like you guys said, it's disappointing. And I mean, it's not even like, yeah, COVID, but you're doing fine. And now all of these people they're out of work. They still have families. They need a roof over their head. They need food to eat. I mean, it's gross. It's gross. Shall we move on though?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
In brighter news, by the way, is my mic sounding good, by the way?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Beautiful.
good.
It's the backwards hat. It's a different frequency.
I don't have my mint hat. I have my Hockey Fights Cancer hat on.
It's a great hat.
There are bad words I like to say to cancer, but I can't say it because we can't swear anymore.
We
British
never
man.
could swear.
Yeah, but we're okay with it. Don't worry. We love voice that.
Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, the winningest driver in Formula One history, has signed a 1-year extension with Mercedes F1 team.
Can we just call him 8-time world champion now? Let's just get it over with.
I should say this again. Let me rephrase this. Sir Lewis Hamilton, because he's a goddamn knight now.
Yeah.
He has 8 now, right? Or
He has 7.
He has 7, but you
So
might as well
Tom
give him
Brady
the
or Lewis Hamilton?
See, you know what? I saw everyone going
I hate
on
that.
about like Lewis, in my opinion, is the greatest F1 driver, but it's very difficult to gauge that versus like the other GOATs like Wayne. If you take away all of Wayne's goals, he's still the leading scorer in league history. Like I hate saying the greatest athlete of all time because it's impossible. But like, the impact he's had, the main straight is now the Hamilton straight at Silverstone. He's a freaking knight. And a big part of their deal apparently too is there seems to be some longer term sort of just like inclusion project. I can't remember the details of it, but it was the last seat waiting to be filled for the F1 season. We all knew it was happening, but the British man, he's back. And I'm really happy about
let's just give him. Let's just
so
give him
likable,
8 to start,
isn't he? Like his interviews are amazing. Talking about his upbringing and everything. Like you love the guy.
Good dogs, Udaga.
Yeah.
Well, people just don't like him because, and let's be frank, people don't like him because he's black, and people don't like him because of how successful he is. I love Lewis Hamilton.
I think there's a lot of people who don't like Lewis Hamilton because he drives for Mercedes.
There is definitely a race thing as well, though.
Oh yeah. I'm not arguing that, but I think there's a good portion of people who don't like him because he drives for Mercedes, and all they've done is win for the last 6 years or whatever.
Listen, I like
4
him
or 5 years,
and I'm a Honda guy.
You big Alex Albon fan?
Yes, I'm a Honda engine guy, and I respect and like Lewis Hamilton.
Listen, all he does is for like the good of the world. Like everything he does, he tries to make everything better around him. He is such a genuine great guy, and everyone's just like, nah, he sucks. It's only shut up. I love Lewis. I'm so happy. You know what? I went into watching my first F1 season knowing what Mercedes were, but I didn't mind, and it made wins like Gasly at Monza, Perez at Sakir. It made them that much better. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that coming in. I always thought Aston Martin or like McLaren who would be like the top tier.
McLaren used to be good.
I'm about to, and by the way, Aston Martin didn't exist last year. They do now, but
yeah.
And Seb looks like he's turned 50 all of a sudden with his bald spot. Does not look great. Anyway,
that's what Ferrari does to you.
Yeah, we're gonna do 2 more things. We're gonna preview the Canadians and the Leafs playing tonight. The Canadians hosting rematch from the season opener. I'm excited, guys. And then we're gonna look at an article about people have been talking about this for the Olympic projections, but a Canada B team and how they would fare at the Olympics. Which would you guys like to tackle first?
Can we do the Olympics first?
All right. So I've linked it in the article. If you could both get it up quickly.
It's up.
I actually we'll go to this after, but there's one line I'd like to read out that made me really sad in that article.
Okay.
And it's before the goalies. So
it's a Down Goes Brown article here.
Our boy
so
Sean.
on The Athletic, of course. So Okay, well then why don't you read it out then, Daniel? You go ahead and read out the lines then. I'm
All
interested
right.
to see what's bothering you here.
Okay, what's bothering me is the goalie thing, and I'll just read
Oh
it
my
out.
God.
It just no, like not the picks itself, but just the sentence. All right.
So let's leave the breakdown. Okay, we'll say it. Say the rest of it. Let's keep to a thingy just so people go read the article. But like on the flurry one, what sentence didn't you like?
Oh, not the flurry one. The first sentence was Eric's team has Carey Price, Jordan Bimington, and Carter Hart.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 good players gone from a position that's become the weakest pool in Canadian hockey. And then this is the one that really hit me. The days of having to decide between Waugh, Brodeur, Joseph, and Belfour are long gone. We're going to have to dig a bit.
Okay,
My childhood's gone, guys.
that's fair. First off, respect Carey Price, goddammit. Second of all, what's wrong with Darcy Kemper, by the way? The guy's so good. He would have won the Vezina last year.
His ears
And-
are not plugged.
Picking Waugh.
Two
Waugh
Stanley
didn't
Cup
want to
rings.
go. Be quiet. He didn't need Hockey Canada, did Waugh, right? They needed him.
No, it's because of Nagano. Like, they mismanaged that team.
Yeah, not his fault. Pissed like dop. Okay, so I want to look at the graphical team there, right? Because like I it's easier to look at. All right. So I'll give you guys the full team here. And by the way, I think one of these is such a stretch. By the way, so goalies for the main because they had the whole pool, but the graphic I think they got Dom decisions to do up. The goalies are Darcy Kemper, which I forgot about him. And now I'm thinking I would put him on the main roster ahead of Binnington, by the way. Marc-Andre Fleury,
Always a good shout.
Yay.
Mackenzie Blackwood,
There he is.
which is a very fair shout. The defenseman. And you know what? I've looked at 2 of these guys. I'm like, how the hell are they not on the main team? The guy who just seems to get no respect in Dougie Hamilton.
Brother of Lewis.
What?
Brother of
Stop
Lewis.
it. Mark Giordano, who has been regressing a bit, but he's still up there.
He's
Dano-
37 in real years, but he's actually only like 33, like based on where he actually started in the NHL.
Eric Engels put an article talking about how Petrie sort of come up and like how he's gotten better with age. It's kind of the same as Mark Giordano. Second pairing they have is Darnell Nurse and Shea Weber, which I'm like, that's not bad. The third
like it.
pairing is Sam Girard and Brent Burns. And the fourth pairing is Ellis and Spurgeon. And I'm thinking,
like
man,
it.
that's not bad.
No,
That's really not bad.
like I wouldn't even feel bad if that was like Team A.
No, Dougie is. I love Dougie. I love Dougie Hamilton.
I just
That's
wish
a
he
good
didn't get injured. Like, that would have been a monster season last year.
Oh, he would have won the Norris.
Yeah.
He would have won the Norris.
Do you know what's funny? I see this team. I see 3 Canadians, and I'm like, wow. Montreal are just such that no elite talent, but just such steady team that half of a good portion of B Team Canada are Canadians. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. The first forward line. This is just the fact that they don't have Patrice Bergeron on the A team. Get out of here! All right, stop it! Stop it! Stop it right now. So their first line is Stamkos. We should put good vibes in the air, by the way, that Stamkos can get onto an Olympic team because he just hasn't had the luck.
He should be on the first team too.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
so-
sure I had him on my roster.
Just no respect. Taylor Hall, which fair, I get it. The second line, Tavares, Sagan, and Giroux. I think you can make cases for all 3 of those guys to make the main team.
Yep.
Maybe not Giroux because Giroux's just not been the same since his wrist injury. The third line, Mantha, who has had we have not talked enough about Mantha. Travis Konechny. It's funny that both those guys got scratched this week, eh? Pierre-Luc Dubois. Fourth line, Monahan, Couture, Brendan Gallagher. And then the extra forwards, Phil Deneau, which I'm like, oh, yeah, Phil. And Alexis Lafreniere.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he could be good. Like, he hasn't had a terrible... It doesn't help that the Rangers are actually god-awful.
Like, I think there's guys I would put ahead of him right now.
Yeah.
Like, he could impress the rest of the season. I'd be like, cool, but right now? We're going Alexi? Really?
Anthony
It's like
Cirelli.
Doughty.
Does Doughty plays forward?
No, like,
throw
he
Brent
made the
Burns
team at
forward.
19.
Oh,
He made the Olympic team at 19.
oh my God. This is, I just... And so these are the Team C candidates, by the way. Anthony Cirelli,
I think
Tyler
he's been there.
Toffoli, Hoffman, Jamie Benn, Joss Anderson, Braden Shen, Jeff Skinner, Yanni Gord, who I forgot was Canadian. Eberle, how do you not have the Canadian hero on the B team? That's disgusting. Duchesne, Kadri, Ryan Strome, Alex Killorn, and Jonathan Drouin.
Okay, the thing is, like, this is what always happens. I think, like, in a way, and this is my opinion, the Canadian B team is a more realistic team than the A team. And this is why. And I'm not saying it's because, like, they're better or anything, but you know how Team Canada really is notorious for line balance and, you know, finding something to, well, they don't do it anymore. Like, apparently, like, I don't think they can anymore with the whole chemistry thing. They're not going to really do that anymore. But I think when it comes to, like, the balancing of things, like, these picks are very realistic. Like an Anthony Mantha, like, not Cirelli. Cirelli is, I think, at a different tier, but like when they mention like an Alex Killorn, or you mention even at this point, it's going to be like a Rick Nash pick, like Jamie Benn at this point, then it's all about that balance thing that I think that this team's just a bit more of what I think Hockey Canada would actually do compared to like the A team where you're like, you know, you pick the best guys available.
You know what? I was thinking at first, you know, maybe they could probably beat the States. And I had a second look at the States roster. Their goaltending is Gibson and Hellebuck. And I'm like, and their defense was going to be like Jones, Hughes, McDonough, Slavin, McAvoy, Krug, John Carlson.
Yeah.
Could they medal?
Probably.
You think?
Well, so my opinion, if we're looking at like what the big five or big six, so Canada, US, Russia, Sweden, and Finland. Am I missing someone?
No,
right? I think they beat Sweden and Finland.
Oh, I don't know about that. You think they beat Sweden?
They don't have Henrik anymore, Lundqvist.
Yeah.
You ever heard of Victor Hedman?
I have.
I didn't even say that.
You ever?
But he can only play like 30 minutes.
You know, Jones played 60. He'll do it.
No, but Jones played 60 in a game that was like 2.5 games.
Yeah, I know he'll do it. The disrespect for Sweden.
No.
And their structural game is so good too. Sweden, how do you think that they've got the best defenseman in the world on their team? What are you doing here?
I mean, like, this is still like a borderline.
But the
team.
Edmonton Oilers have 2 top 10 players, and look at what they're doing.
Hold on a minute. They have Jujhar Khaira. Sweden has like the best Swedish players in the world.
That's fair. Fair point. Fair point.
I don't know. Like, this team is
okay. Do they beat Russia?
How good is Askarov then?
I mean, like, okay,
well,
so
Vasilevsky.
Like this is from
World
Vasilevsky.
I think Vasilevsky's overrated.
This is from World Championship and World Junior. I mean, not World Junior. Now, I won't. I'll exclude the word World Junior. But this is from World Championship experience.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, the grinded out Canadian teams have always been able to beat Russia. But like when it was always like a bunch of stars don't make the playoffs or they're eliminated early, they always lose to Russia. So this team might have a chance because I always find that, like, you know, the teams that they have the top tier guys, but they don't have like a McDavid or they don't have like a Crosby in that lineup, but like they'll have guys that will play that two-way game like crazy and like really grind down like the Russian stars. That always tends to kind of be the team that beats them.
Think of Russia's team like this. You have Malkin, you have Kuznetsov, you still have Ovechkin and Panarin, Svechnikov, Radulov, Kucherov, Kaprizov, all the offs, Tarasenko, and then the defense is looking better than it's been because you have Orlov still. Nestorov has turned his career around. Gabrikov's around there. It has this article I'm looking at has Slava Voinov. Please no, he doesn't deserve it. Romanov, we might see what he turns into. Sergachev and Ivan Provorov. Like
I'm
the
concerned
Russian
about their centers.
defense.
Yeah.
Their centers I'm just concerned about.
Well, you can ride Malkin and Kuznetsov though. I don't think that's a problem. Like it's still I'm not gonna lie. Like I think their firepower still makes up. Like this is still Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're an afterthought. And again, Alexander Ovechkin guy. Panarin might be a top 5 player in the league. Like I think we're disrespecting the Russians a bit here. Like
no, I don't think they beat Russia. I don't think Team B beats Russia.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Good. I think let me find Finland. I don't know about Finland.
I think Team B will give a really good fight to Russia, but I think Russia beats out Team B.
Okay. Where is Finland? I don't even see a Finland one here. Oh no, I do. It has Germany. Do they beat Germany? Does Team B beat Germany?
Yes. I think so.
Oh god.
Unfortunately.
I thought Sami Vatanen was Swedish. He's Finnish apparently. All right. I think they can give. So this is what Finland's looking like. You have Rask, Korpisalo. Not even going to mention Saros. Ristolainen is not terrible. Hanola looked all right. Another year. Yoki Harju. Heiskanen, Lindell, Vatanen, Nudavara. And then on the wings, the hero, Joel Kiviranta. Pulja Harvey is starting to look like a real player, by the way. Teravainen, Laine, Barkov, Aho, Hintz, Kakiniemi, Kapanen, Rantanen, Donskoy.
Sami Kapanen?
Puljujarvi's not even on the roster.
I'm looking at a hockey writers.
Oh, I'm looking at the Athletic. That's why.
Check out the hockey writers.
Yeah, check out Minnesota.
Well, yeah, good point. I think the real question is Rask going to be playing? Because it's the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
And it's been hinted at retirement.
I think you can trust Korpisalo. I think he's proven that he's a good goalie.
Mm-hmm.
You'd probably prefer Rask, but especially with the rest he's been getting with Halak. I think they could challenge to medal. I don't think challenge like bronze.
Wait, Team B or Finland?
B team. I think Finland would give them a run because Finland has that. If anyone's the thorn in the side, it's always been Finland. All of a sudden that really good team back in the day, and I don't even think I saw Nick Ehlers on that. Ehlers is Finnish, isn't he? He must be. Nick Ehlers.
These are.
I think they could challenge.
He's Danish. He's from Denmark. Denmark.
Oh no, it's him and Lars Eller are their best players.
What?
Are we missing someone, Daniel?
Who else is Danish? It's really good.
Anderson?
Oh yeah, Anderson.
Wait, what?
Frederick Anderson.
Yeah. What else?
What?
What else?
Oh no, never mind. Let me search this. Hold on.
You just gotta search it up.
He can't figure it out.
We should for next.
Okay, World Juniors.
Okay,
World Juniors.
Okay, I got the list.
Okay.
Franz Nielsen.
Oh no.
Oliver Bjorkstrand.
Oh, he's not bad. That's fair.
I don't know if he's playing anymore. Yannick Hansen.
I don't know.
I don't think he's playing anymore.
Philip Larson. I think he's in the SHL.
We're really pulling at straws here,
Mikhail
guys.
Bodker. Patrick
is he
Russell.
Still around? Where is Bodker? Like Dallas?
No, he was.
The hell is Mikhail?
Oh, he's in HC Lugano of the National League.
Oh,
so he didn't come back. He was with San Jose.
Okay. Yeah. Oh wow.
Oh no, he's with Ottawa because remember he got traded for Mike Hoffman.
Oh yeah, when they traded him.
Is he still in Ottawa? No.
No, he was last year, but I think that cap hit's gone.
Bye.
All right.
So, is there anyone else you'd like to shout out from the Danish hockey team?
I'm looking at all-time stats right now on Quant Hockey. Franz Nielsen's the number 1 Danish player. He has 469 points in 908 games. Pretty impressive.
No. All right. I think we move on.
Yeah.
All right. Montreal and Toronto. We're all excited for this game. All right. They will be without Wayne Simmons, obviously. Travis Dermott is apparently back in the lineup. I'm learning from looking at our doc. All right, I'm going to ask you guys what you're expecting out of both teams today. We will start with the visitors. We will start with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Alex, what are you looking for the Leafs in this game?
A better game than Monday. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Like, they played really well. I mean, it's easy to play well against Vancouver, unfortunately, but that besides the point. Like, I want to see them play like they've been playing for like since the first two games, which I think has been quite a steady team. Yeah, they have their downs. Every team's have their downs, but it's being able to pick yourself up from those downs. And I think that's something that's always lacked from this team for the last 4 years. So I'm expecting a better performance than what I saw on Monday, because I felt like they only played the last period. The first two periods, it felt like they were treating it as practice, in my eyes.
Daniel.
I think, yes, what Alex said, there was a lot of complacency there against Vancouver. And I think you really need to tighten that up against a team like Montreal. And then this is going to be different from the first tilt, because going in, we saw the things with Ben Sherratt. We saw, the fight. We saw all those things, those hits going on. And, you're not going to have Wayne Simmons or Joe Thornton in this lineup. So I think that a few bottom six guys are going to have to step up. I think that in terms of the cycles, you're going to have to get those two lines going. Again, embarrassing against the Canucks that, you had 7 shots in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You really need to fix that, especially with the offensive gifts you have to the team. Like Frederik Andersen, stood on his head against the Canucks, especially early on. So, yeah, a lot more consistency, and just from the first period onwards, they're going to have to keep the momentum going, especially against a Montreal team that we've said has those lines that they're just going to keep throwing at you, and Carey Price is going to be in net.
Yeah, that was confirmed earlier by Claude Julien. Yoel Armia will probably be a game-time decision as well. If we're looking for anyone as well, it will be Travis Dermott coming back into the lineup, Alex.
Yeah, I mean that's the Leafs for the first time, and I honestly couldn't tell you how many years, probably since I became a Leafs fan, where we've had an issue on D and it's actually been positive. Because like they're in a tricky situation. I think I've changed my thoughts on the way the team looks with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. I just don't necessarily think that's going to work out the greatest, or at least the team hasn't looked the greatest using that format. So they're going to Mikko Lehtonen has the last few games with Dermott out. I think Mikko Lehtonen's looked pretty good, and him and Zach Bogosian, I think it's the pair that kind of works. It weirdly works well. Because Lehtonen's able to move the puck. Bogosian is able to maul somebody down if need be. Bogosian's able to do things that maybe Mikko Lehtonen might not be able to do. And I think that's the perfect partner for him right now. On the other hand, you have Travis Dermott, who we've expected to take a step up. And I think you've seen in the years past, and even this year a couple times, that next step from him, but it needs to be a lot more consistent. And I think with Bogosian, with Lehtonen and even Rasmus Sandin right behind him, I think it's going to push him to stay in that lineup. So I'm hoping for a very good performance from Travis Dermott tonight.
Was it Bogosian versus Corey Perry tonight?
We'll talk about that
maybe,
because if Armia's in, you question what happens with Perry and Armia. That's the question that everyone's looking for. Daniel, is there a specific player you are looking for tonight? Because Alex sort of mentioned there, Sandin Lehtonen will be out tonight, as well as Barrett Banov, and in their places we got Enval, we got Nick Patan, obviously there with Travis Dermott. Mr. Right situation, Nick Patan.
Yeah, I'm surprised, not because he's a bad player, but just how long he's been with the Leafs. Because I was excited when they got him, solid little junior guy, but he's someone that, he always somehow finds his way back into the lineup. That he never kind of gives up. That he is our second coming of Tyler Ennis in a way. That he just kind of fits in all situations. But for me, what I want to kind of see is John Tavares kind of take a bit of a step. I know he's been pretty consistent, but a lot of the attention on like Marner, it's on like Austin Matthews and his streak right now. But like to see John Tavares kind of get out there and have like a bit of a dominant game as well, like I think that would be great. I get great for him, great for the depth as well, and just great for like rolling out those lines because again, like what I said with like Montreal, like to try to like counter everything is gonna be a bit of a weird thing when it gets to like the fourth line. But if they could get things going at the top six, then I think that it's gonna be a pretty solid game out of him.
Mm-hmm. Alex, Ilya Mikheyev.
Yeah, he's in such a weird situation because I think when we saw him play last year, obviously his first year in the NHL, it was, oh man, this guy could be the next. He can be our next Zach Hyman if he leaves, or he can be that second line Zach Hyman. And then obviously he got injured, so it was a very weird. We don't know what he is, and I think we're starting to get a glimpse. And I think there's a lot riding on him not having hands and being able to score. And I think we've forgotten that Zach Hyman was in the exact same situation. Like when you see Zach Hyman, in my opinion, I'm not comfortable with Zach Hyman making a breakaway. I'm not. I don't know many people that are, right? So I think he has a very similar style to Zach Hyman, and I think he fits perfectly next to Tavares and Nylander. And I don't know why we're having this discussion that we need to go out and get a second line Zach Hyman when he's kind of sitting here. Like, I think he's just been unlucky. I think he's very good. He just doesn't have hands.
Has Mikheyev, he hasn't scored, has he?
No.
See, that's the thing. He has to score eventually. You can't just keep a guy in your top six playing with that talent and not score.
But he hasn't been playing on the top six.
I know, but you need what I mean is you need a guy in there, though.
I know, but okay, but Leaf fans were having the same discussion about Zach Hyman. When the first couple of years, that first year with Matthews and Marner, I don't know, he put up, I think, maybe 10, and then the year after he put up 15 goals. But it was like the amount of situations that he was in, he should have had more goals. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like Ilya Mikheyev's going to end the year on 0 goals. Like, I think it's being blown out of proportion a little bit. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable with the Leafs spending an asset on Sam Bennett. I'm not. Like, that's just, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's just the thing, and we talked about it last episode, it's the thing that keeps being thrown out there. Ilya Mikheyev can do the same thing Sam Bennett does. So you're telling me you're going to go out and get in, like, sorry, Sam Bennett, this magical goal scorer that I missed? No, like, he's going to do the exact same thing, and then we're going to be having the same conversation, except this time we're we have one less asset. If you're going to go out, make an impact. But now you have to go out with no cap space and make this work when you have a guy who can potentially get out of this rut.
Am I weird for wanting to see Jason Spezza up there? I don't know why.
I could see it. Like, I wouldn't mind.
I wouldn't mind it either. I just, not the entire game, because then it defeats the purpose of what we've been. Like, it's the same thing with Joe Thornton, right? It's that same discussion. Like, he really shouldn't be playing the entire game next to Matthews and Marner.
We just need the bursts of 2006 and 7.
Because as the game goes on, the worse it's going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I've just been excited by Spezza not having the shackles of a centerman on. That's what's exciting me about Spezza. And I'd like to see what he'd be able to do on that line. For, even if it was just a bit. Like, do you maybe sort of sacrifice some need on the fourth line? Yeah, but, I mean, the minutes that Marner and Matthews are playing right now, and, a coach that's willing to play those guys more often, I think you can sacrifice a few lines against that fourth guys.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on the Leafs front you guys want to mention?
Zach Bogosian game-winning goal tonight.
Okay.
If things don't go well at the bottom 6, I'd put Nylander back at center on the third line.
No,
I
stop.
would
Stop.
not do that.
Why are you doing? I don't know if are you serious? Would you actually?
I mean,
do
like
that?
it's worked before. Where like
No, wait a second. It has not worked. It has not worked. They had to play him at center. They played him at center last year for the last period of game 5 when Nylander played center to the second line because they wanted to go all nuclear. And then when Kadri got suspended, he had to play center again. And it's just, he's not a centerman. I'm sorry.
I mean, like in terms of depth, I don't know. I'll see.
If they're in a matchup, I think Montreal eats him alive and down the middle.
Yeah.
Like I don't think he would be minded. Like he'd probably go against either the Toffoli or the Byron line, and those guys they play that sort of a smother game too much. At center, I don't think that is a position that
would have put
Willie's
Engvall on
gonna
his
succeed
line
at all.
just to help up with the size.
No, that wouldn't. No,
I could
that
only
would not
dream.
work.
Like, I'd rather play Engvall at center.
Okay.
Even in the bottom 6, like he's done it before.
Mm-hmm.
He's been flying out there.
But not Nylander.
Not Nylander, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I have a soft spot for the center projects. Like Chicago's done it with Patrick Kane. The Ducks did it with Bobby Ryan. The Canadians did it with Jonathan Drouin.
Those were all projects that just clearly were not going to work. Like you have to.
Give us some better projects here, Daniel. Come on.
It's a damn demanding position, the centerman. You can't just plop a guy in there and be like, all right, go. Yeah, especially like I just don't think that's going to work. I don't see Willie as a centerman either.
Like,
I just don't think that's his game.
Like even Zach Hyman, they tried Zach Hyman. They had to on the penalty kill, and I think the work ethic and he has the skill outside of the face-offs. But I think you're getting murdered on the face-offs. I think that's where it fell for him.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. Looking at the other side of this, I look at Montreal today, and I think with Simmons out, and looking at the last game, and I just have this image of Sherrod and Matthews going back and forth. I think I'm looking for a Canadiens team that are going to impose themselves physically tonight. We already know their speed game. We know their possession game. But I feel like the Canadiens, and looking at Sherrod because of the game he played that first game, and Josh Anderson with the words he had afterwards, I think those are two guys I'm definitely looking at tonight for Montreal to really, really try and pull out a win tonight.
I have two things.
Mm-hmm.
The first is when you said that you're looking at this team tonight, you could actually say I'm looking at this team outside your window.
Yes.
Second, I completely agree with you. I think that what we talked about before in the offseason, that what this North Division gives and the way Montreal's be able to build itself, that, this is just going to become, what we wanted out of a rivalry. Like things have reignited in a way. I remember Elliot Friedman talked about that. He mentioned in the summer too, where you look at what Montreal has been able to do, and he mentioned that the Toronto-Montreal rivalry, it has a bit more of an edge to it now than we talk about with the Battle of Ontario, because of given what Ottawa's situation is. So I think that this will continue to be something that we're going to look at with the Canadiens, that just like what I've said before so many times, that difference in the last 2 years, what they've been able to do and really carve out an actual identity now, where they're going to go up against a top team. They're going to go against like a team like the Leafs and still be able to do things with what they have like rolling out there. And again, that toughness you've mentioned, that Josh Anderson thing, like we were unsure about what the Canadiens were getting with him, but I think he's become like one of the most important guys. And then I thought that, and then they get Tyler Toffoli, where now like suddenly I just kind of think that they're gonna go in tonight and they're gonna try to impose things again, because I said Simmons isn't there, because like Thornton isn't there, that they're gonna be able to play their game a bit better. There's gonna be a bit more intimidation tonight, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think you make a really good point there about the rivalry, because I think to really have a top-notch rivalry, both teams have to be good. And I think we've like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, those years where they met in the playoffs, even in the regular season, it wasn't boring. Like that's for sure. Like some of the greatest rivalries, like even Ottawa and Toronto in the 2000s, like it was good because they were both good or somewhat good. Right. I think We got to stop artificially trying to create rivalries, or the NHL does.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with either of you there. I think it helps, yeah, but these teams have a certain ability to sort of they play at each other's levels, either if it's going up or down. I think you see the same with the Sens in Boston. It helps when they're better. You want the more fireworks. But I think regardless, they're always great games. It's just the stakes are what make it, I think, that level higher. And but we do have that right now in the North Division, but the separation that Montreal and Toronto are sort of building right now. And I'll ask you guys what I asked about the Leafs, and that is what exactly you're expecting out of Montreal tonight.
I'm not expecting anything different than what I expected the first game. It's going to be tough, and I think they're going to come out swinging with goal, whatever it may be. Like it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good game. Like, I don't think it's going to be, I think we walked into the first game, we had an idea it was going to be a little bit sloppy because first game of the season, no preseason, shortened training camp. And from my perspective, I think it was a little bit sloppy, at least from Toronto's side of things. And I think this game is going to be, it's going to be better. And for Montreal, I think if they just have that same game plan that they've pretty much had for the entire season and being able to roll all the lines, all four offense lines, all three defensive pairings, I don't think they're going to have much of an issue.
Dan.
For me, and I think that just the one word that comes to my mind is confidence, is that what we see with the guys that have been in Montreal that are the skilled guys, that I think they're playing with a lot more confidence now. They are just playing their game. They've been able to kind of excel in that because I think that there's that reassurance that there's the depth now, that there's the accountability if someone makes a run on them. That's what I like kind of get with Montreal, and it's going to be exciting to see like them go against the Leafs again, based on what they've been able to do like so far this season.
Something else I wonder looking ahead tonight is what the pushback is going to be, like again on the physical game of it. I forget what play it was, and it was something very, very simple. And it was Matthews just finishing a check. And I'm like, I forgot he's a heavy bastard. And I'm really, really excited to see what Ben Sherratt and Austin Matthews are going to be like tonight. I don't know about
It'll be
you
interesting.
guys, but...
I mean, not even just Ben Sherratt. I think from the Leafs perspective, I think a lot of them have an extra oomph because of the guys they brought in. Even with Wayne Simmons out. And I think for me, the guy who's changed the most is Austin Matthews. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, because I think with Montreal, I don't know if they have to necessarily change their game plan, because if they play with confidence, like Daniel said, if they play tough, if they get in the corners, most of the guys in the Canadian division, that will beat them. That will beat that team. And I think Toronto's still learning how to play that game. And if you come in with that game plan, it's going to be an interesting night.
Mm-hmm. Anything else on this front we want to say there, guys?
I'm excited.
I think so. Yeah. Other than I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Vancouver games in a row. I like certain players on the Canucks, but I needed a bit of a, because we relied a lot on the Canucks story of like, man, game after game. So like finally, I think like I like that we get to push this narrative again between the Habs and the Leafs.
Mm-hmm. All right, that is everything then. Unless you know what, we can do a final Twitter check to see if anything is breaking. Hopefully.
Hopefully not.
Okay, besides that,
something's gonna happen in like 20 minutes after like we stop recording.
I know.
I can already feel it.
Just the way it works.
Mm-hmm. All right, there we go. Josh Anderson looking to extend his goal streak to 4 games. Didn't know he was on that. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, well, thank you very much for watching. We appreciate it. If you really liked it, let's say you're on the podcast app on iOS, I'll give the show a 5-star rating and review and all that type of stuff. Check out the show's YouTube channel for visual experience of the show, the Instagram, the Twitter, all that lovely stuff, including our own socials. Check out my YouTube channel, Alex's blog, Daniel's stuff for the Eye Opener, as well as the Hockey Writers for the Minnesota Wild. Thank you, The Voice Ad, as always, for being a fantastic platform for the show. Follow us anywhere that you listen to your podcasts, whether that's iHeartRadio or just anything. We're there somehow. We don't know how, but we are there. I think that's everything, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
See you.